Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." But let me ask you, how often do you truly feel that power in your daily life? If you've ever found yourself stuck in a loop of endless thoughts, replaying past conversations, worrying about every possible outcome, or feeling paralyzed by decisions, then you know the toll overthinking can take. It drains your energy, clouds your judgment, and keeps you from fully experiencing the present moment. You're not alone in this. It's a universal struggle, and one the Stoics mastered centuries ago. They didn't just cope with mental chaos, they learned to conquer it. Today, we will tackle this challenge head-on with 8 practical Stoic strategies to conquer overthinking. If you're looking for ways to break this cycle and reclaim your mental space, make sure to hit the notification bell and subscribe. Now let's dive in. 1. Visualize your overthinking as an external force. Have you ever noticed how overthinking often feels like something that creeps up on you? Uninvited, relentless, and impossible to shake off. One moment your mind is clear, and the next you're tangled in a web of endless thoughts. What if I fail? What did they really mean by that? What if I'm making the wrong choice? It starts as a whisper, then turns into a roar. But here's the truth. Overthinking isn't who you are. It's not your identity. It's an external force that tries to invade your peace, and that means you have the power to separate yourself from it. The Stoics, especially Marcus Aurelius, taught us to examine our thoughts instead of blindly following them. He said, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." But here's the twist. If your thoughts are clouded, chaotic, or toxic, then your life starts to feel that way too. The first step toward mastering your mind is realizing that your thoughts are not you. They are visitors, and like any visitor, they can be shown the door. So how do we apply this practically? You start by creating mental distance. One powerful technique is to visualize your overthinking, not as part of you, but as something outside of you. Picture your thoughts as clouds in the sky. You're not the clouds, you're the sky itself. The clouds may come and go, dark or light, heavy or soft, but you remain, steady, unmoved, eternal. That's your essence, unshaken by what passes through. You can also imagine your overthinking like fog rolling in over a quiet mountain. That mountain is you, grounded, strong, immovable. The fog may swirl and obscure your vision, but it doesn't change the mountain. It doesn't move it. The more you identify with the mountain rather than the fog, the more you reclaim your mental strength. When thoughts rush in like a flood, try this. Imagine putting each anxious thought inside a translucent bubble. See it for what it is, a passing idea. Then, gently let it float away. Don't engage, don't chase it, just watch it drift. This isn't some abstract visualization, it's a Stoic exercise in emotional detachment. It reminds you that you are not at the mercy of your thoughts unless you allow yourself to be. And if you think this is just poetic imagery, remember this. Modern neuroscience confirms what the Stoics knew intuitively. When you observe a thought without reacting emotionally, you're actually rewiring your brain. You're creating space between stimulus and response, and in that space lies your power, your freedom, your peace. This kind of visualization becomes a mental reflex. The more you do it, the stronger it becomes. It's like training a muscle. Every time you pause and picture a thought drifting away rather than clinging to it, you're building your capacity to let go. You're reclaiming territory in your mind that overthinking has tried to occupy. Now you may wonder, how does this really help when the thoughts feel so real, when the worry feels justified? The answer is that feelings are not facts. Thoughts may feel urgent, but urgency doesn't make them true. Just because a thought appears doesn't mean it deserves your attention. Not every mental notification needs to be clicked. Some should be left unread. Stoicism teaches us that the mind, like a city, needs strong walls and trained guards. You wouldn't let just anyone walk into your home and stay as long as they want. So why let destructive or obsessive thoughts do exactly that? Visualization gives you the tools to become the gatekeeper of your own mind. You decide what enters. You decide what stays. You decide what gets removed. One of the most powerful things you can tell yourself in a moment of overthinking is this. This thought is not me. I'm observing it, not becoming it. That single shift changes everything. You go from victim to observer, from overwhelmed to composed, and eventually from distracted to peaceful. Think of it this way. If your thoughts were strangers shouting outside your window, would you invite them in? Number. You'd recognize the noise, perhaps even be aware of the chaos, but you wouldn't open the door and let them disrupt your life. Your overthinking is no different. It makes noise. It demands attention. But you are not required to listen. With regular practice, this visualization strategy becomes a stoic shield, like putting on armor before walking into a noisy world. The distractions will come. The overthinking will try to sneak in again. But now, you're equipped. You have a defense. You have clarity. And you have the wisdom of the Stoics echoing in your mind. You have power over your mind, not outside events. The next time overthinking starts to cloud your vision, take a breath, step back, visualize the thought, see it for what it is, just noise, and then let it go. That moment of stillness, that moment of silence between you and your thoughts, is the first real taste of mental freedom. It's a practice, it's a process, but it's one of the most powerful transformations you'll ever make. 2. Take control by refocusing your energy. Have you ever found yourself spiraling? One thought leads to another, until your mind feels like a storm with no end in sight. It's like being trapped in a room with 100 open tabs, all playing noise at full volume, and no way to shut them off. This isn't just stress. This is mental chaos. And the truth is, overthinking thrives in that chaos. It feeds on your scattered energy and multiplies in the absence of focus. But here's the good news. Your energy is yours to command. You have more control than you think. Seneca once said, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence on the future." This Stoic wisdom is simple but transformative. It reminds us that the present moment is all we truly possess. And yet overthinking constantly pulls us away from it. We worry about what might happen. We regret what already did. We get lost in futures that haven't occurred and problems that may never exist. But ask yourself this: how often has worry ever improved a situation? How often has overthinking made you feel empowered rather than exhausted? The Stoics teach that control doesn't begin with the world outside of you. It begins with your attention. And what you choose to focus on right now is where your life is actually happening. So the practice of refocusing your energy is not about distraction. It's about reclaiming your awareness and intentionally placing it where it matters most. Start small. The next time your thoughts begin to spiral, pause and ask yourself, what am I doing right now? If you're walking, walk fully. If you're eating, taste every bite. If you're speaking to someone, truly listen. This may sound basic, but this is where true presence lives. Overthinking can't coexist with full presence. It thrives in fragmentation. Presence shatters it. You might be tempted to think that multitasking is a strength, but in reality, it's one of the biggest culprits behind mental fragmentation. Like juggling knives blindfolded, it might feel productive, but it's often dangerous and exhausting. Instead, bring your energy to one thing at a time. Choose a task, any task, and give it your full attention. This isn't avoidance, this is discipline. Maybe that task is organizing your desk, cleaning a room, or going for a walk without your phone. Maybe it's writing, creating, fixing something, or simply being still. Whatever it is, focus is a form of power. And every time you redirect your energy into something tangible, you're telling your mind, I am in control. There's a reason why Stoic thinkers placed such high value on intentional action. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." This isn't just moral advice, it's practical. Taking action grounds you. It pulls you out of the storm of overthinking and anchors you in movement, in effort, in the here and now. You see, overthinking is often a result of inaction. When you're not moving forward, your thoughts have nowhere to go. They begin to circle, question, and doubt. They rehearse disaster and replay regrets. But once you begin to act, even in the smallest way, you change the pattern. You break the loop. You interrupt the spiral. One action leads to another, and suddenly you're back in motion. Think of it like this. Your mind is a spotlight. Wherever you shine it, that's what grows. If you keep it on uncertainty, anxiety expands. If you shine it on purpose, peace expands. This shift in attention doesn't make your problems disappear, but it diminishes their power over you. You're no longer feeding them with your focus. You're reclaiming the most precious resource you have, your attention. And remember, this doesn't mean you'll never overthink again. That's not the goal. The goal is awareness. to catch yourself when you're lost in your head and gently bring yourself back. That is power. That is mastery. You might say, but I can't always control where my mind goes. That's okay. The Stoics never expected perfection. They expected practice. They expected progress. Each time you catch yourself drifting into anxious loops and gently redirect your focus, you're building mental resilience. You're strengthening your capacity to live with clarity and intention. This is mental fitness. And like physical fitness, it gets stronger with repetition. The next time you feel overwhelmed by thoughts that won't stop everything and redirect. Clean a drawer. Go outside. Take 5 deep breaths and look at the sky. Journal your thoughts to get them out of your head and onto paper. Talk to someone. Move your body. Action is your bridge from thought to clarity. And most of all, remind yourself, I don't need to figure everything out right now. I just need to do the next right thing. This moment is enough. This breath is enough. This action is enough. By consciously choosing where your energy flows, you're not just managing your thoughts, you're mastering your life. The chaos outside may continue, but your inner world? That belongs to you. And every time you refocus your energy, you prove it. 3. Embrace impermanence and practice letting go. Have you ever noticed how certain thoughts seem to stick in your mind like glue? A mistake you made years ago, a conversation you wish had gone differently, or a worry about something that hasn't even happened yet, but might. These thoughts linger, replaying like a broken record. Overthinking thrives in this space. It convinces you that you must keep turning things over, analyzing every detail, because maybe, just maybe, you'll finally feel at peace. But you never do. The cycle continues. And here's the truth. Peace doesn't come from clinging tighter. It comes from letting go. In Stoic philosophy, there's a core idea that changes everything: impermanence. Nothing lasts forever, not your joy, not your pain, and certainly not your thoughts. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic teachers, once said, "He who fears death will never do anything worth of a man who is alive." At first glance, it seems heavy, but look deeper and you'll find its true meaning. It's not just about death. It's about the temporary nature of all things, including the noise in your mind. The fears that paralyze you today may not matter in a week or even tomorrow. The anxiety you carry may seem unbearable now, but it will pass, if you let it. To embrace impermanence is to understand that overthinking loses its power when you stop treating your thoughts like permanent truths. They're not. They're passing weather systems in the vast sky of your mind. Some come in like storms, others are just light clouds, but all of them move. They are not you. They do not define you. And they don't deserve to take up permanent space in your heart. This is where the practice of letting go comes in, not as weakness, but as a courageous act of mental clarity. When you release the thoughts that no longer serve you, you're making space for stillness, for presence, for life. Think about this. When you're overthinking, you're mentally clinging to a possible future, clinging to a regret, clinging to the idea that if you just think hard enough, you'll find certainty. But life doesn't promise certainty, it offers change. And the sooner we make peace with that, the freer we become. So how do you let go when your thoughts feel so loud and real? The Stoics would advise us to observe without attachment. You can start with a simple mental visualization. Imagine your thoughts as leaves on a river. Each one drifts by, gently on the surface of the water. You don't need to grab them, you don't need to push them away. Just let them float. Trust that the current knows where it's going. Or picture your thoughts as clouds passing over a mountain. You are the mountain, strong, still, unshaken. The clouds may obscure the view, but they can never move the mountain. This isn't just a calming image, it's a daily practice in perspective. Over time, it changes your entire relationship with your thoughts. And here's something powerful. Letting go isn't the same as giving up. It's not about indifference. It's about choosing what deserves your energy. When you let go, you're not pretending the thought doesn't exist. You're acknowledging it, accepting its presence, and releasing its grip. That's emotional strength. That's Stoic courage in action. Letting go also means recognizing that you don't need to resolve every thought. Not every fear needs an answer. Not every regret needs to be fixed. Some things just need to be released. And sometimes the most rational thing you can do is to let the irrational pass without comment. It helps to remind yourself regularly. This thought is temporary. This feeling is passing. This moment will shift. Because that reminder keeps you anchored in something greater than the noise. It anchors you in wisdom, in stillness, in perspective. Start making this a habit. Throughout your day, when you catch yourself looping over a thought that's draining you, pause and ask, is this thought helping me or hurting me? Is it guiding me toward peace or pulling me away from it? If the answer is the latter, visualize it drifting away. Breathe, refocus, and move forward. You can also bring this practice into your nighttime routine. Overthinking often strikes hardest when the world is quiet. Before bed, write down what's on your mind. Get it out of your head and onto paper. Then close the journal. That act, small as it is symbolic. You're telling yourself, I've acknowledged these thoughts. Now, I choose to rest. Stoicism reminds us again and again, we can't control the world, but we can control how we respond to it. And that includes how we respond to our own minds. Letting go isn't about abandoning thought. It's about reclaiming your mental sovereignty. So the next time your mind feels crowded with what ifs, should haves, and why did I's, take a moment to breathe. Remember that these thoughts, like everything else, will pass. You don't need to fix them all. You just need to stop holding on so tightly. When you embrace impermanence, you're not just releasing stress. You're opening the door to peace. You're making space in your mind for what matters. And more than anything, you're reminding yourself that you are not your thoughts. You are the one watching them go. 4. Create a worry period. Worry has a way of showing up uninvited, right when you're trying to focus, relax, or sleep. It lingers like background noise, humming just beneath your thoughts, sometimes loud, sometimes subtle, but always persistent. Whether you're working on a project, enjoying time with loved ones, or lying in bed at night, that low, constant hum of worry can rob you of peace. Overthinking doesn't ask for permission, it just takes. But what if you could take back control? Not by pretending worry doesn't exist, but by giving it a time and place. That's where the Stoic-inspired strategy of creating a worry period comes in. It may sound counterintuitive at first. Why would you set aside time specifically to worry? Shouldn't the goal be to eliminate it? But the truth is, worry doesn't just disappear when you ignore it. In fact, suppressing your thoughts often makes them stronger. Like trying to push a beach ball underwater, it always pops back up. The Stoics weren't about denial, they were about discipline. And this method is exactly that, a disciplined approach to managing mental clutter. Epictetus once said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." What does this have to do with worry? Everything. He's reminding us that real change requires stepping outside of appearances and doing what actually works, even if it looks unusual to others. So instead of pretending you're unaffected by anxiety, Stoic wisdom encourages you to confront it on your own terms, with structure and intention. So here's how it works. Each day set aside a specific window of time, say 15 to 20 minutes, in which you allow yourself to fully worry. This is your designated worry period. During this time, you don't distract yourself, you don't sugarcoat your fears, and you don't rush through them. You lean in, you face them directly. Write them down, speak them out loud. Ask yourself, what exactly am I worried about? Why is this bothering me so much? What do I think will happen? How likely is it really? And what can I actually do about it? You'll likely find that many of your worries lose their edge when you put them under a spotlight. The mind loves to dramatize in the shadows, but worry shrinks when examined with clarity. And that's the real value of this practice. It creates mental boundaries. You're telling your brain, yes, we can think about this, but only at the right time. That simple rule takes away the urgency. It interrupts the cycle of constant mental intrusion. And once your worry period ends, it ends. That's a sacred part of the discipline. You close the notebook. You stop analyzing. You return to the present moment. You gave your worries their time. Now you're free to live the rest of your day without carrying them around like a weight on your back. Of course, the first time you do this, your mind may resist. It might try to bring those thoughts back during work, during dinner, during your walk. But that's where you remind yourself, this is not worry time. That comes later. Right now, I choose peace. It's not about perfection, it's about practice. And each time you gently redirect your mind, you're building resilience and reinforcing a powerful truth. You are not ruled by your thoughts. You are the one who directs them. The brilliance of this method is in its simplicity. You're not running from worry, you're scheduling it. And by doing that, you take the wind out of its sails. You transform it from a chaotic intruder into a manageable guest. This also aligns beautifully with Stoic control theory, the idea that some things are up to us and some things are not. You may not be able to stop the first thought from appearing, but you can control how and when you engage with it. Creating a worry period is a way of exercising that control, of drawing a line between reaction and response, and over time something incredible happens. The more you contain your worry to its time slot, the less it spills over into the rest of your life. You begin to realize that most of what keeps you awake at night or distracted during the day isn't as urgent as your mind made it seem. You see the repetition, the exaggeration, the illusion of control, and that awareness makes you stronger. Think of this like tidying your mental space. You wouldn't let dirty laundry pile up in every corner of your home. You'd put it in one basket, handle it when it's time, and move on. Your thoughts deserve the same order, the same boundaries. You're allowed to worry, but only in a way that doesn't control you. If you feel overwhelmed, remind yourself, I'll think about this during my worry period. Right now, I'm living. This isn't escapism, it's empowerment. And it's a practice that will serve you not just in moments of anxiety, but in life as a whole. Because once you learn to contain your worry, you begin to uncover something far more powerful: clarity, peace, freedom, and the realization that your mind, when disciplined, becomes your greatest ally, not your enemy. 5. Break down overwhelming thoughts into actionable steps. When overthinking strikes, it rarely shows up as one clear thought. Instead, it arrives like a flood, a relentless surge of questions, doubts, fears, and imagined scenarios that seem impossible to navigate. You find yourself staring into space, paralyzed by all the things you think you have to figure out. The weight of it all presses down on your chest, and instead of moving forward, you freeze. You tell yourself you can't begin until you know the whole path, until you're sure, until you have every answer. But deep down you already know, those answers may never come. Not all at once, not the way your mind demands. And that's exactly where the Stoic mindset becomes your greatest ally. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Those words aren't just poetic, they're profoundly practical. They remind us that our anxiety, our overthinking, our fear of the unknown, these are not roadblocks. They are invitations, signals that point to the next necessary action, but only if we stop trying to tackle everything at once. The human mind wasn't designed to solve an entire life's worth of problems in one sitting. Yet that's exactly what overthinking tries to make you do. It demands that you find the perfect answer before you move. It creates pressure to get everything right on the first try. But this is a trap. It keeps you locked in your head, analyzing and doubting, instead of engaging with the real world. What the Stoics knew, and what we must remember, is that clarity doesn't come from thinking harder. It comes from doing something, even if it's small. The most empowering way to break free from this cycle is to shift your focus away from the big picture and toward the smallest possible action. If your thoughts are swirling with uncertainty about a decision, a project, or even your future, ask yourself, what is the very next thing I can do? Not what's the ultimate solution, or what will fix everything forever. Just, what's the next move? And then take it. This approach may seem simple, but it's one of the most powerful tools you'll ever use. Because the moment you take even the smallest step, you begin to reclaim your agency. The fog of indecision starts to lift. The emotional intensity of your thoughts begins to fade. And what once felt like an overwhelming wall becomes something manageable, something you can navigate, one movement at a time. It's like standing before a massive boulder and feeling crushed by its weight, only to realize that it's not one solid piece. It's made of smaller, movable stones. The challenge isn't in removing the entire thing at once. It's in choosing the first stone, lifting it, and clearing the way forward. That single action changes everything. It doesn't solve the entire problem, but it shatters the illusion that you're stuck. Stoicism is not about the elimination of fear or worry. It's about building the strength to act regardless of them. When you start breaking down your mental chaos into tangible steps, you stop being a prisoner of your thoughts. You become their commander. You take the swirling energy of your overthinking and redirect it into progress, clarity, and peace. There will be moments when your mind fights back, when it insists that you must have it all figured out before you begin. that you need the perfect plan, the flawless execution, the guaranteed outcome. But those are just thoughts, just noise. And they lose their power the moment you take action, however imperfect it may be. Let's say you're overwhelmed by something as common as not knowing what direction to take in your life. Instead of trying to map out every possible future and choose the absolute best path, take one step today that moves you forward. Research something you're curious about. Speak to someone who inspires you. Write down your thoughts without judgment. That small effort isn't just a distraction, it's a declaration. It's a way of saying, I will not let this mental storm keep me frozen. I will move even if I don't yet see the full path. Each action you take, however minor, builds momentum, and momentum is what begins to dissolve the power overthinking holds over you. You may not notice the change immediately, but as the days pass and you continue to act with purpose, you'll look back and realize that what once seemed like a mountain was actually a staircase. You've already climbed higher than you thought possible, one step at a time. What makes this practice truly transformative is that it doesn't require you to wait for motivation or perfect clarity. It simply asks for a willingness to begin. And in that beginning you find strength, because the act of doing, of stepping forward, reminds you of something powerful. You are not helpless. You are not at the mercy of your thoughts. You are the one who chooses the direction of your life. So the next time you find yourself consumed by 1,000 racing thoughts, stop trying to answer all of them at once. Take a breath. Find the one thread you can pull. And start there. Let the rest go, at least for now, because you don't need to do everything today. You just need to do something. And that is how you take back control from the inside out. 6. Shift your perspective to gratitude. Overthinking often begins with a single thought that multiplies itself like wildfire. A doubt about your worth. A worry about the future. A fear that you're not doing enough, being enough, or becoming enough. Before you know it, your mind becomes a battlefield, waging war against possibilities that don't even exist. And yet, in the middle of all that mental noise, there's something you might be overlooking. Something powerful, something transformative, gratitude. It may sound simple, too simple even, but this is where Stoic philosophy shines most. Not in offering grand answers to life's biggest questions, but in pointing you back to what's always been within reach. Seneca once said, true happiness is to enjoy the present, without anxious dependence on the future. And in that one sentence he gives us the antidote to overthinking. Because what is overthinking, if not a relentless fixation on what's missing, what could go wrong, or what might happen next? And what is gratitude, if not the courageous decision to see what's already here, already good, already enough? In the grip of anxiety, your mind becomes laser-focused on the gaps, the spaces between what is and what you wish would be. It's a mental spotlight constantly scanning for problems, future dangers, and things that might go wrong. But the Stoics teach us that suffering often doesn't come from the world itself. It comes from our judgment of it. The more you dwell on what's lacking, the more you invite dissatisfaction into your life. And that's exactly what overthinking feeds on, a sense that the present isn't sufficient, that you must do more, fix more, be more. But gratitude breaks that cycle. It doesn't erase your problems, it puts them in perspective. It doesn't deny that life is difficult. It simply reminds you that within that difficulty there's still beauty, still joy, still something to appreciate. When you start shifting your attention from what you fear to what you already have, your entire internal world begins to change. You create a space that overthinking can't easily invade. A quiet strength forms beneath the surface. A calm certainty that whatever life throws at you, you'll face it from a place of abundance, not scarcity. Think about it. When was the last time you truly paused and acknowledged the smallest good things in your day? Not the grand accomplishments or life-changing events, but the warmth of your morning drink, the sound of laughter, the fact that you made it through a difficult moment and you're still standing. These are not minor things, they are the thread that holds your emotional balance together. Gratitude doesn't require perfection. It just requires presence. And presence is the very thing overthinking tries to steal from you. The more you practice gratitude, the more aware you become of the richness already embedded in your life, and from that awareness comes resilience. Suddenly, you're no longer obsessing over things you can't control because you're grounded in what you already do control, your focus, your values, your appreciation. Overthinking loses its grip because it thrives in dissatisfaction, in the belief that things must change before you can feel okay. Gratitude flips that narrative. It says, I'm okay now. I may not have everything, but I have something, and I refuse to ignore that. This isn't just spiritual talk. It's a practical Stoic exercise. Marcus Aurelius himself made it a habit to journal his thoughts every day, many of which were quiet acknowledgments of the value in things most people overlook. He found comfort not in external achievements, but in the stability of his inner world, and much of that strength came from the discipline of appreciation. You can do the same. And it doesn't need to take more than a few minutes a day. You might start each morning or end each night by silently naming 3 things you're grateful for. It could be the stability of your home, the presence of someone you love, or simply the opportunity to try again today. The more personal and specific you are, the more powerful the effect. Over time, this practice becomes a lens through which you see your life, not as a series of unfinished tasks or looming uncertainties, but as a constantly unfolding opportunity to experience meaning, connection, and inner peace. And when the mind inevitably returns to its habit of worrying or analyzing, you'll be better prepared. Instead of feeding that worry, you'll redirect your awareness back to gratitude. Not because it solves everything, but because it shifts everything. It reminds you that you are not as lost as your mind wants you to believe. You are already standing on solid ground. You just need to notice it. Let's be clear, gratitude isn't a denial of reality. It doesn't mean ignoring your challenges. It means refusing to let those challenges define your entire reality. It's about creating balance, recognizing the hard things, yes, but also giving equal weight to the blessings that quietly exist alongside them. The beauty of this practice is that it strengthens over time. The more you look for things to appreciate, the more you find them. And the more you find them, the more resilient and centered you become. So the next time your thoughts begin to spiral, when your mind races toward a dozen different futures, pause, ground yourself, take a breath, and turn your focus toward what is, not what might be, not what could go wrong, but what already is. That single shift may not change the situation, but it will change how you experience it, and sometimes that's the most powerful change of all. 7. Focus on effort, not outcome. If overthinking had a favorite game, it would be obsessing over the outcome. What if this doesn't work? What if I fail? What if people don't understand me, don't support me, or worse? What if I give my best and still lose? These questions creep in the moment we decide to take action. They plant seeds of doubt and water them with fear. And before we know it, we're stuck, not because we lack ability, but because we're too attached to how things might turn out. This is one of the most dangerous traps of overthinking, the belief that you must control the result in order to justify taking the step. But Stoicism teaches something very different. Epictetus didn't tell us to fixate on how things end. He told us to focus on how we begin, how we live, how we act, how we show up every day with integrity, regardless of the outcome. Don't explain your philosophy. Embody it, he said. That's not just a statement about living ethically, it's a powerful call to action. It means shifting your entire focus away from what's beyond your control and pouring your energy into what's right in front of you, your effort. Outcomes are illusions we chase because we believe they'll give us peace. But peace doesn't live in the result. It lives in the process. The truth is, you can do everything right and still not get what you want. And you can stumble your way through a moment and end up with a better result than you imagined. So why hang your peace of mind on something so uncertain, so fragile, so far outside your reach? When you begin to focus on effort instead, something shifts. You begin to reclaim your power. Suddenly, it's no longer about impressing others or achieving perfection. It's about being true to yourself in each moment. You start asking different questions. Instead of, will this succeed? You ask, am I giving my best? Instead of, what will they think of me? You ask, am I staying aligned with my values? These questions don't feed anxiety, they fuel clarity. We live in a culture obsessed with results, metrics, milestones, likes, awards. But Stoicism offers a liberating alternative. Measure yourself not by what happens, but by how you respond. Did you face the moment with courage? Did you remain honest when it was easier to lie? Did you act with kindness when anger would have felt justified? These are the questions that matter. These are the moments that build character. Because the truth is, the person you become during the process is far more important than whatever reward might lie at the end. Focusing on effort doesn't mean giving up ambition. It means detaching from the part of ambition that poisons your clarity, the part that says, "I'm only valuable if I succeed." That mindset is fragile, built on outcomes that shift like the wind. But when you begin to value your consistency, your discipline, your willingness to try, regardless of result, you create something unshakable inside you. You build strength that no failure can break and no success can define. There's a deep kind of freedom in this. You start to see that the pressure to be perfect fades when your goal is to be present. Overthinking shrinks when you realize your responsibility ends where your effort ends. The rest is not up to you, and it never was. You don't need to carry the future on your shoulders. You only need to carry this moment and carry it well. Let's say you're working on something meaningful, a project, a relationship, a change in your life, and you're filled with fear that it won't work out. You can spiral into worry, trying to predict every outcome, manage every variable. Or you can stop, take a breath, and return to your effort. Ask yourself, what is the next right thing I can do? Then do it. Not for the outcome, but for your own integrity. That single action puts you back in control, not of the world, but of yourself. This is where Stoicism becomes deeply empowering. It tells you that success isn't defined by what you achieve, but by how you strive. It's not about the applause, the results, or the approval of others. It's about your internal scorecard, the quiet knowledge that you live today with courage, clarity, and purpose. When your focus returns to effort, you also become more resilient. Setbacks don't destroy you because your identity isn't tied to what happened. It's tied to how you showed up. You stop fearing failure because you understand that true failure isn't falling short. It's refusing to try. It's giving up before you even begin. But when your pride comes from your effort, you can lose a battle and still win the war. You can miss the mark and still walk away with dignity. The Stoics didn't promise ease, they promised strength. They taught us to prepare for uncertainty by rooting ourselves in discipline. They didn't teach us to predict the future. They taught us to prepare our character so that whatever the future holds, we meet it with composure and grace. So when the overthinking creeps in, when your mind starts spinning stories about how it all might go wrong, pause. Remind yourself, I can't control the outcome. I never could. But I can control my effort. I can bring my full self to this moment. I can act with purpose even when the future is unclear. And if you can do that again and again, day after day, then no matter how things unfold, you'll walk through life with something more valuable than certainty. You'll walk with confidence because you know you gave your best. 8. Practice voluntary discomfort. When most people think of discomfort, they see something to avoid, something unpleasant, even threatening. Our natural instinct is to stay comfortable, safe, and unbothered. But what if I told you that this very instinct is what gives overthinking its power? When we become addicted to comfort, our tolerance for uncertainty weakens. Every challenge feels like a threat. Every unfamiliar situation sends our minds spiraling into analysis, prediction, and fear. And that's when overthinking takes over, not because the situation is dangerous, but because we become mentally unprepared to face discomfort. The Stoics had a radically different view. They believed that discomfort was not an enemy, it was a teacher. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The art of living is more like wrestling than dancing." Life is not always graceful, it's messy, difficult, unpredictable. And in that reality, the only way to build resilience is to train for it, to expose yourself, by choice, to what's uncomfortable so you can become stronger, calmer, and more prepared. This is what we call voluntary discomfort. It's not suffering for the sake of suffering. It's about building inner toughness through small, intentional acts of discipline. And when practiced with awareness, it becomes one of the most powerful tools against overthinking. Here's why it works. Overthinking thrives in the unknown. It exaggerates pain, amplifies fear, and convinces you that discomfort will break you. But when you choose discomfort on your own terms, even in small doses, you begin to dismantle those illusions. You show your mind that you can handle discomfort, that you're stronger than your fears, that you don't need to avoid pain to feel safe. You need to face it to feel free. You might start with something simple. Take a cold shower. Wake up earlier than you want to. Skip the elevator and take the stairs. Delay gratification, resist a craving, or sit in silence for longer than feels comfortable. These acts aren't about punishment. They're about training your nervous system to stay calm when things get hard. They're about proving to yourself that you can sit with discomfort without immediately trying to escape it. And the moment you prove that to yourself, even once, something powerful happens. Your mind begins to respect you. It stops sounding alarms at the first sign of difficulty. It stops overreacting to change. Because now it has evidence that you can face what's uncomfortable and remain composed. Think of voluntary discomfort as mental armor. In a world that constantly promises convenience, you're choosing challenge, not because it feels good in the moment, but because it makes you unshakable in the moments that matter. Overthinking often escalates because we've never practiced facing life head-on. We've only rehearsed avoiding it. But the Stoic doesn't flinch at adversity. The Stoic prepares for it. Seneca, in his letters, often spoke of deliberately living with less. He would wear rough clothing, eat simple meals, and sleep on the floor, not because he had to, but because he wanted to remind himself that he could. He once said, "Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself all the while, 'Is this the condition that I feared?'" He knew what we forget, that fear of discomfort is often worse than discomfort itself. When you regularly practice voluntary discomfort, you begin to view challenges differently. You no longer ask, "How can I avoid this?" You ask, "How can I grow from this?" That shift rewires your entire mental framework. Suddenly, obstacles become opportunities, fear becomes fuel, and overthinking no longer has the same grip on you because your mind is no longer terrified of what might happen. It's ready. This doesn't mean you need to become extreme. You don't have to live like a monk or run marathons in the cold. What matters is that you do something, anything, that builds your capacity to stay present in discomfort. Because that presence is the antidote to panic. It's what allows you to meet life with clarity instead of confusion, with courage instead of avoidance. And the beauty of this practice is that it builds over time. Each act of voluntary discomfort adds another brick to your foundation. You become more grounded, more stable, more at peace. Not because life is easier, but because you are tougher. And that kind of strength, quiet, disciplined, stoic strength, becomes your greatest defense against the storm of overthinking. The next time your mind starts racing with doubts, fears, and what-ifs, pause and remember. You've trained for this. You've sat with discomfort before. You've chosen challenge before. You've walked willingly into situations that tested you, and you're still standing. This isn't just a mindset. It's a way of living. A decision to stop running from discomfort and start facing it with open eyes and steady breath. Because on the other side of that discomfort is something more precious than ease. It's confidence. It's resilience. It's freedom from the need to control everything. When you practice voluntary discomfort, you're not just preparing for life's hardships. You're strengthening your mind so that when hardship arrives, when uncertainty hits, when the world shifts, you don't fall into panic, you fall into presence. And that is the essence of Stoicism. Not to live without struggle, but to become so grounded, so ready, so resilient, that struggle no longer defines you. Overthinking doesn't need to be your default state. You are not powerless against your thoughts. The Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, didn't teach us to eliminate emotion or never feel fear. They taught us how to face those emotions, how to observe our thoughts without being controlled by them, and how to live well even in the face of uncertainty. The 8 strategies we explored today aren't just philosophical ideas. They are tools, practical, powerful, and timeless. Tools that, if used consistently, can bring clarity where there was once confusion, calm where there was once chaos. You don't need to conquer your entire mind in one day. All you need is the courage to begin. One thought observed, one worry released, one moment reclaimed. The journey to peace isn't about perfection, it's about practice, daily, gently, stoically. If this video gave you something to reflect on, something to hold on to when your thoughts start to spiral, then I encourage you, don't just think about these ideas, live them, apply them. Let them transform not just how you think, but how you exist in the world. If you're committed to building that kind of inner strength, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Together we'll keep walking the Stoic path, one step, one thought, one deliberate breath at a time.